Yes, it was breaking news. Diddy adopted a white child. I want you to tell them the story about how I adopted you.
What if I told you that millions of people watched a child being teed live on Instagram and actually cheered for it? What if that heartwarming pandemic adoption story you shared on social media was actually the public auction of a vulnerable little girl to one of the most dangerous P's in entertainment history? We're talking about someone so twisted, so calculated, that it makes your stomach turn when you realize what you're really witnessing.
There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head.
This isn't just about Terrence Howard exposing Diddy's secrets. This is about a system so corrupt, so protected, that they could literally broadcast their crimes to the world and have millions of people celebrate it as an act of kindness. We're talking about Ava Baron, a homeless white girl who was allegedly handpicked, conditioned, and delivered to Sean Diddy Combs under the cover of a feel-good adoption story that had everyone, from celebrities to soccer moms, posting heart emojis. Think about that for a second. While you were stuck at home during lockdown feeling good about sharing that beautiful adoption moment, federal prosecutors now believe you were actually witnessing the public transfer of a T victim. The same man who's now facing life in prison for running a criminal enterprise allegedly used your compassion, your desire to see good in the world, as cover for one of the most brazen crimes imaginable. But here's where it gets absolutely chilling. TMZ later confirmed that Sean Diddy Combs had never legally adopted Ava, and that the clip was actually described as a skit. A skit? What kind of sick mind creates a skit about adopting a vulnerable child? In that disturbing resurfaced video from 2020, Diddy kisses the young girl on the cheek as she calls him Papa Combs and explains how she met his twin daughters when they were very young. The girl introduces herself saying, "My name's Ava. I'm a Scorpio," before stating her name as Ava Combs and then correcting it to Ava Baron after his probing. Honestly, looking back, it's really cringe.
My name's Ava. I'm a Scorpio.
No. What's your last name?
Oh, Ava Combs.
What's your other last name?
Ava Baron.
Ava Baron Combs? Yes, it was breaking news.
The most nauseating part? Diddy actually says on camera, "I adopted you because I felt that you could also enjoy having a black parent to take care of you and help you out," noting that he had permission from Baron's mother. But if no legal adoption ever took place, what exactly was this permission for? And why would a mother give permission for her child to be publicly claimed by a man who wasn't actually adopting her? Sources close to the situation revealed that Ava's parents were close friends of Diddy's late ex, Kim Porter, and Ava may have spent considerable time with the Combs' family. But here's what's terrifying. Ava has completely vanished from public view since that 2020 video. Where is she now? Why hasn't she been seen with the Combs family since Diddy's arrest? And why have her biological parents reportedly separated themselves from Diddy, particularly in light of his current legal troubles? This isn't just about one missing girl. This is about a system that turns your empathy into their shield, your social media shares into their alibi, and your trust into their weapon. And the most terrifying part? It almost worked. Before we dive into these earth-shattering allegations, we need to understand why Terrence Howard's voice carries so much weight in this conversation. This isn't some desperate actor looking for attention or a disgruntled former employee seeking revenge. We're talking about a man who's built a decades-long career in Hollywood, someone who's worked with the biggest names in the industry and has absolutely nothing to gain from making these kinds of accusations.
You're going through so much to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far.
Terrence Howard first started dropping hints about Diddy's behavior during a series of podcast appearances that initially flew under the radar. He wasn't making headlines or seeking publicity. He was having what seemed like casual conversations about his experiences in the entertainment industry. But for those who were paying attention, his comments about Diddy were anything but casual. He described encounters that made him uncomfortable, advances that crossed professional boundaries, and a pattern of behavior that suggested something much darker was happening behind closed doors. What makes Terrence's testimony so credible is his track record of speaking uncomfortable truths, even when it costs him professionally. This is the same man who's been vocal about industry corruption, who's challenged powerful figures when others stayed silent, and who's consistently chosen integrity over career advancement. When someone with that kind of reputation starts starts making specific allegations about criminal behavior, federal investigators take notice.
Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it.
But Terrence isn't operating in isolation. He's part of a growing network of industry insiders who've been quietly sharing information and supporting each other's efforts to expose the truth. His decision to go public wasn't made lightly. It was the results of months of careful consideration, legal consultation, and coordination with other witnesses who've been building a case against Diddy's alleged criminal enterprise. The timing of his revelations is particularly significant. Terrence started speaking out before the federal indictments were announced, before the raids on Diddy's properties, and before the current charges were filed. This wasn't someone jumping on a bandwagon or trying to capitalize on an existing controversy. This was someone with insider knowledge trying to warn the world about what was coming. And now that federal prosecutors have updated their charges to include 2 additional victims, Terrence's early warnings are looking less like conspiracy theories and more like prophetic insights into a criminal investigation that's far from over.
But I've spent 37 years pretending to be people so that people can pretend to watch and enjoy what I'm doing when I've made some discoveries in my own personal life.
Terrence Howard isn't just another Hollywood whistleblower. He's a man who's been carrying the weight of knowing that something was fundamentally wrong with this entire situation. Howard, who recently revealed on the PBD podcast that Diddy made inappropriate advances towards him under the guise of acting lessons, has been watching federal investigators slowly piece together what he suspected for years. When Howard's assistant bluntly told him, "I think he's trying to F you," during one of these alleged coaching sessions, it wasn't just about Howard, it was a glimpse into a pattern of P behavior that extends far beyond adult victims. The timing is absolutely crucial here. Howard began speaking out about Diddy's inappropriate behavior in April 2025, just 1 month before Diddy's ST trial. But federal prosecutors had already added 2 new criminal charges against Combs in April 2025. An additional count of ST and 1 additional count of transportation to engage in P involving victim 2. Could Ava be victim 2? The timeline certainly fits. What makes this even more sinister is that Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, has been making explosive claims about the rapper's past, describing a pattern of manipulation and control that spans decades. When you combine Howard's testimony about Diddy's P advances with the mysterious circumstances surrounding Ava's adoption and subsequent disappearance, a horrifying picture emerges.
But all this is bigger than Diddy. It's bigger than Diddy, bruh.
But let's rewind to understand the world Sean Diddy Combs has built before everything came crashing down. This wasn't just any celebrity facing charges. This was a man who had constructed one of the most powerful empires in entertainment history. A cultural kingpin whose influence extended far beyond music into fashion, media, and business. For over 3 decades, Diddy had been the ultimate success story. From his early days at Uptown Records to founding Bad Boy Entertainment, he had discovered and launched the careers of legendary artists like the Notorious B.I.G., Mary J. Blige, and Usher. His business empire included the Sean John clothing line, Ciroc Vodka partnership, and Revolt TV network, ventures that made him one of the wealthiest figures in hip-hop with an estimated net worth of nearly $1 billion. What made Diddy's public persona so untouchable was his carefully crafted image as a philanthropist and community leader. He regularly hosted charity events, donated millions to educational causes, and positioned himself as a mentor to young artists. His annual white parties in the Hamptons were legendary networking events where A-list celebrities, politicians, and business moguls would gather, cementing his status as a cultural power broker who could make or break careers with a single phone call. The entertainment industry itself operated under an unspoken code of silence about the darker aspects of fame and power. While there were always whispers about exploitation and mistreatment, figures like Diddy seemed immune to serious scrutiny. His influence over media narratives was so complete that negative stories rarely gained traction, and when they did, they were quickly buried under positive press about his latest business venture or charitable donation.
The after party of the big events. This is happening like in the mainstream Hollywood music industry world. It's not like it's happening on some private island off in the Bahamas.
Diddy's parties were the stuff of legend. Exclusive gatherings where the biggest names in the entertainment world would let loose behind closed doors. These weren't just social events, these were displays of power, where attendance meant you were part of the inner circle, and exclusion could signal the end of your career. The phrase Diddy Party became synonymous with luxury, excess, and the kind of access that money couldn't buy. You had to be invited into the kingdom. His romantic relationships with high-profile women like Jennifer Lopez and Cassie Ventura were constantly in the spotlight, but always framed as the glamorous lifestyle of a successful mogul. Even when relationships ended, the narrative was typically about mutual respect and continued friendship. The public had no idea that behind the champagne toasts and the red carpet appearances, there was allegedly a systematic pattern of control, manipulation, and mistreatment. The most disturbing aspect of this entire saga is the suspicious pattern of deaths surrounding people who threatened to expose Diddy. We're not talking about random coincidences, we're talking about a specific, rare type of pneumonia that keeps claiming the lives of Diddy's enemies. Kim Porter, Diddy's ex-girlfriend and mother of his children, was reportedly threatening to expose his activities when she suddenly died of lobar pneumonia in November 2018. The 47-year-old had complained of a sore throat that developed into a 102-degree fever, but by November 14th, her temperature had returned to normal. She even had a deep tissue massage and watched movies with her family before going to bed. By morning, she was dead. Brittany Murphy, the beloved actress, died of the same type of severe pneumonia in 2009 at just 32 years old. What makes her case particularly suspicious is that she was walking around with this for some time, according to medical examiners, yet somehow never received proper treatment despite having access to the best healthcare in Hollywood. Uncle Ron, Diddy's former bodyguard who had been threatening to expose industry secrets, allegedly died of pneumonia just 24 hours after posting a video warning that a whole lot of new stuff is going to surface and a whole lot of new names are going to come up. In one of his final videos, he explicitly warned that no one should ever believe he died from natural causes. On top of that, Gene Deal, who had been with Diddy from the beginning, also apparently backed up Big Homie.
Diddy, poisoned him, or he's the reason why he got sick that night.
The deadly pattern of pneumonia deaths wasn't the only bombshell rocking Diddy's world. Back in that Manhattan federal courthouse, the walls were closing in fast, and Sean Combs was about to show the world what happens when a man used to absolute control realizes he's completely powerless. Unlike Cassie's testimony, which the defense could frame as the bitter recollections of a scorned ex-girlfriend, Terrence Howard's evidence comes with the moral clarity that only systematic P behavior cases can provide. There's no gray area when it comes to the alleged conditioning and exploitation of vulnerable individuals in the entertainment industry. No room for arguments about consensual business relationships or mutual professional benefit. The testimony that Terrence is prepared to give doesn't just corroborate a pattern of inappropriate advances, it potentially documents a decades-long system of using power and influence to exploit those seeking career opportunities. The prosecution's case was already strong with Cassie's testimony and the supporting evidence from witnesses like Dawn Richard, who described threats and violence. But Terrence Howard's cooperation provides the missing piece that transforms this from a case about dysfunctional romantic relationships into something far more sinister. A systematic operation that preyed on aspiring talent under the cover of industry mentorship and professional development. What makes Terrence's potential testimony so devastating is his unimpeachable credibility and the fact that he has absolutely nothing to gain from speaking out. This is an Oscar-nominated actor with a successful decades-long career who's risking potential industry backlash by coming forward. When Howard revealed on the PBD podcast that Diddy made inappropriate advances towards him under the guise of acting lessons, he wasn't seeking attention or financial compensation. He was finally speaking a truth that he'd carried for years.
Hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f*** you.
What's particularly powerful about Howard's testimony is how it connects to the broader allegations against Diddy. Federal prosecutors have accused Combs of using his influence and resources to coerce individuals into compromising situations, often under the pretense of career advancement or professional mentorship. Howard's experience fits this pattern perfectly. The persistent invitations, the false pretense of professional collaboration, and the underlying threat that refusing these advances could impact one's career prospects. As Jaguar Wright continues her regular attendance at the trial, armed with bodyguards, and an unwavering determination to see justice served, she's not just seeking accountability for individual victims. She's working to expose what she calls a system, an entire network, a decades-long pattern of conditioning, mistreatment, cover-ups, and broken talent. With Terrence's evidence now potentially in prosecutors' hands, that system may finally face the reckoning it has avoided for far too long. The physical evidence seized from Sean Diddy Combs' properties reads like a criminal enterprise's inventory list, and it's absolutely devastating to his defense team's attempts to portray this as anything other than a systematic operation designed for exploitation and control. When federal agents executed search warrants on his Miami Beach mansion and Los Angeles residence in March 2024, they didn't just find evidence of parties gone wrong. They uncovered what prosecutors are calling the infrastructure of a decades-long criminal enterprise. The sheer volume of materials found is staggering and tells a story that no amount of legal maneuvering can explain away. Agents discovered dozens of bottles of baby oil and personal lubricant, specifically Astroglide, strategically placed throughout the properties alongside what they're calling freak-off supplies. But this wasn't just about S activities. The evidence shows a level of organization and preparation that suggests systematic criminal behavior. The discovery of boxes containing 7-inch platform high heels in various colors, bondage restraints, bundles of rope, and multiple S toys positioned near the lubricants paints a picture of events that were carefully orchestrated rather than spontaneous encounters. What makes this evidence particularly damning is how it corroborates witness testimony about the alleged freak-off parties. George Kaplan, Diddy's former personal assistant who was granted immunity to testify, described setting up hotel rooms with a hotel bag containing candles, baby oil, Astroglide lubricant, audio speakers, and extra clothing. His testimony about cleaning up lots of empty bottles and baby oil on the table, on the floor, on the bed, after these events perfectly matches what federal agents found permanently stored at Diddy's residences.
All of this was uncovered during that raid on Diddy's Miami compound back in 2024. Firearms and ammo, bondage kits, sex toys.
The weapons cache discovered adds another terrifying dimension to the case. Federal agents found AR-15 rifle parts and components in Diddy's main bedroom closet, along with ammunition for .45 caliber firearms. The proximity of these weapons to the alleged freak-off supplies suggests they weren't just for protection. They were tools of intimidation designed to ensure compliance and silence. When you combine this with witness testimony about threats and violence, the weapons become evidence of the coercive methods prosecutors allege were used to maintain control over victims. Perhaps most chilling is the substance evidence that shows the systematic nature of the alleged crimes. Agents discovered MDMA, C, and K throughout the properties, including pink packets of ketamine found during Diddy's arrest at the Park Hyatt Hotel. But it's the specific substances found that tell the story, substances known for their effects on memory, consciousness, and the ability to resist. Kaplan testified that he witnessed Diddy taking substances daily, including plants, K, C, M, and E, and that he would give them to his friends. This wasn't recreational substance use. This was allegedly a systematic method of incapacitation. The digital evidence represents perhaps the most explosive aspect of the case. Federal agents confiscated 96 electronic devices containing approximately 90 terabytes of data, an amount prosecutors have described as extraordinary in scope. While the specific contents haven't been fully revealed, prosecutors have indicated this digital evidence includes recordings of the alleged freak-off sessions, communications showing the systematic nature of the enterprise, and documentation of the coercion and control methods used against victims. As Terrence Howard's explosive testimony looms and federal evidence mounts, weapons, substances, systematic exploitation tools, Diddy's empire faces total collapse. What began as a heartwarming adoption story has exposed decades of P behavior hiding behind charity and mentorship. Justice is finally coming. Subscribe for updates. This reckoning is just the beginning.